50 minutes. As a college professor, that's how long most of my classes last, 47 minutes too long for most of my students. So I use humor to keep them awake. But had second thoughts about this the other day when they asked my permission to start a Twitter account that would tweet my jokes. Kind of feeling like they were missing the point, I said, well, I don't know if I've got enough funny material. I do, for a whole Twitter account. And they interrupted me and showed me their notes. She said, Dr. Vrooman, one of the students, I've been writing down your jokes for 3 years. So in the words of Twitter, she's favoriting my material by putting it in the margins and putting little stars next to it. And then she's retweeting it by sharing it with other students, mostly after class, but sometimes during class, I saw that. So it's one of many examples of the ways in which we process information in social media and in everyday life are so similar. And I wonder what we could learn from those connections, from the huge amount of data we have on social media, to the harder things to study, like how our brains work. And I think there's a connection. And the short answer is share more, but not the way you think. And I'm going to get you to that answer, but first I have to take you through a couple things. I have to take you through sneakers, I have to take you through selfies, and I have to take you through Star-Lord. I know that's a pie. It's okay. Sneakers. These sneakers are customized to within an inch of their life by their user, sharpied to express their identity, as are all these other pictures of things that my friends on Facebook sent me when I asked. We modify everything, right? And we do this for ourselves because we're our best audience, but we're not our only audience. Otherwise, we'd only get tattoos in places where at least most people couldn't see. And we certainly wouldn't put them on Facebook and send them to Vrooman for his TED Talk. We modify our lives publicly. And social media is so much a part of this. When I click like, that's a public act. When I share something, that's even more public. And we do it because it's public, not in spite of that. How many of you have let the scrapbook sit in the closet or the bookshelf and instead use Instagram and Facebook? And that scrapbook, honestly, was for other people to look at anyway. Our memories are shared. They're public. Memory is an active relationship. It's an act of performance. And it always has been. In 1972, years before the internet, Gregory Bates, an anthropologist, argued that most of human communication is relational. Friendship messages, goodwill, like dogs sniffing each other's orifices in the park. And you know the prototypical example, in the hallway. Hey, how you doing? Fine, how are you? Good, good. There's no information content, right? It's all relational. My students have it down to a science. They're like, sup. Sup. Like nobody says what actually is up. They just go, right? And it's not that we suck at information processing, although we probably do, but for Bateson, we're just not built for it. Primate survival is relational before it's informational. So for like 20 years in my classes, we've been arguing about Bateson, and we try to put numbers on this. Bateson's not a numbers guy, but let's just go for it, to see what percentage of human communication is information, defined as something new, and what percentage is relational. And most of the classes end up with 10%. Maybe 10% of communication is informational. A sadly small number, maybe. But it's a number that has echoes and some other things that we might look at. So I want to talk about selfies. I won the Oscar pool this year for the first time in 10 years. You want a piece of me, Tim Clark? Anyway, so I immediately tweeted it because it's not real until it gets tweeted. I mean, you're thinking about this Oscar selfie, aren't you? But before we explain what this means, I want to look at this. It's the matrix, right? No, actually, this is 1 week worth of Facebook engagement data from a particular Facebook site. So these are aggregated numbers of likes, click-throughs, and shares. So high numbers are good, right? That means people are paying attention to your content. And you'll notice that the highest number is like 14, lowest is almost 0. The average turns out to be a little less than 5. That's pretty small. And when I asked my friends who administered other Facebook sites, their engagement numbers were in the same. Maybe yours are too, 5 to 10%, all under that Bateson number. Now, Twitter expands this a little bit more. 2.8. Who's that? Most popular boy, man-child in the world, Justin Bieber, who's more popular than I'll ever be, even though now I'm famous. He gets 1/3 of a Bateson. A third of Abateson for his most popular tweet the last week in August. Justin Bieber. What about that selfie? What about that Oscar selfie? Record-breaking, broke Twitter, most retweeted ever. Really? Is 18% the upper level of human cognition in a casual environment? 30 million people follow Ellen on Twitter. 40 million people were watching the Oscars live. She dared people to break Twitter by retweeting this, and that's all she got. 15 to 3. These are our ranges. Mass media for 70 years has been studying every new medium that comes along to find out how much we can remember from it, whether it's newspapers, I hit it again, whether it's newspapers or websites or books, and we remember in this range 15 to 3%, very similar to all of our other numbers. That's it, that's what we get. Now, here we go, this one keeps wanting to show up. You've seen numbers maybe like this from educational statistics that we can remember at this level, but that's only possible under two conditions. One, I threaten you. I'm going to give you a test and then I give it to you. And then you remember, oh my God, I'm going to get a D, right? Or I ask you, I prompt you, I call you up and say, today, did you hear TEDTalks or Fred Talks? And you're like, TED! Yes, and you remember, and then you can remember up into here. But otherwise, it's all in that 15%. Last caveat, you've probably heard these fake statistics about we remember like 70% of what we see and however much percent of what we hear. Those are fake. Look at Will Thalheimer's blog and you'll find out that's an urban legend. We remember very little. We remember that much, 15 to 3. So what do we do with that? That's kind of depressing. If we're all in the business of spreading ideas, that's not very good. So what do we do? And I wanted to try to learn from social media, and that's where this pie chart comes up. And call this pie chart Star-Lord. What does this pie chart represent? It represents 2,500 retweets and favorites from randomly selected users over a 1-week period. I'm interested in what are the patterns of what they retweet and what they favorite. How do they choose what to engage in? And it's this. And the vast majority of it are these three things. Things that are funny, right? We like funny. Things that are personal. When I say something to you specifically, it always works, right, Jeff? And fandom, things we already think we like. That's the dominant element of what it is that we retweet. There's a couple other things that are, things that are inspirational. These are things like quotes from Gandhi or the cat poster from the Lego movie. This is what we like. This is where we live. This is how we engage. Now, what about these sad little gray pieces? Pro tip, never eat gray pie. What are these sad pieces? These are the 6 o'clock news. These are things that get eyeballs but don't keep them. They fail to engage, but they seem sexy. And in fact, there is sex up there, and politics, and food, and cute kittens. We don't care about this stuff as much as we think. We don't engage with it. We engage with these things if I make the pie go away. This is why I called it Star-Lord. This is Guardians of the Galaxy. This is the Marvel formula for taking over the world, the box office, the galaxy entirely. I mean, what is Guardians of the Galaxy? It's funny, it's fandom, it's like other things we already like, except in cute, cuddly raccoon form and little trees dancing. It's kind of inspiring, kind of deep, and then it's personal. It makes all those really specific messages to you, maybe, like little puppy stickers on the tape deck and Footloose references, the kind of stuff you do with your friends. The Marvel formula is to give us exactly what we want, and of course, we all saw the movie. At least I did. This is what we engage with, and this is how we choose what to do. So what do you do when you put all this together? What do we learn? It means we just got to work harder. I mean, we're here at TED, and at the risk of heresy, maybe ideas worth spreading should be ideas worth sharing. Maybe we need to share more. But not share more information. I don't want you to take some of this information and give it to another person like a little packet. I want you to share you. If what Gregory Bateson says is what we care about is a relationship, how are you making that relational possibility with somebody else? How are you doing what Kenneth Burke argued 50 years ago when he defined identification as this commingling of substances, and he defined it in this almost magical way? And isn't it magical when you finally connect with somebody, when you share something in that moment? And in both social media and everyday life, that's what we want. That's what we need, and that's how we can engage others. It's a magical act to have somebody click like on their phone, in their brain, and their notes. It's magic, and we don't often recognize that. So before we open our mouths, or our email, or our Twitter app, I want us to think about how we can share more. Otherwise, we're really just wasting each other's time. Share more. Thank you.